Hello, welcome everyone who's joined us today. You're very welcome to the Honest Product webinar. We're thrilled to have you online with us. I am Sharon Bly and I lead Health and Wellness here at the Consumer Goods Forum, and I'm delighted to co-host this webinar with Futerra and welcome Solitaire Townsend and her team who worked with us to lead the Honest Product project here at the Consumer Goods Forum, and many of you took part in that, so thank you very, very much. We have 30 minutes in front of us, so we'd love to get as many of your questions as we can throughout today's webinar. So you have two options of doing that. We are on mute because there is a large number of us on the phone today. So two options here to ask your questions. You can see on your screen how you can use the chat box, so don't hesitate to send through your questions as you think of them going through the webinar, or send me an email. My email address is here on the screen, s.bligh@theconsumergoodsforum.com. If we don't get to your question, rest assured, we will contact you after the webinar, or if you have some follow-up questions or anything that you'd like to get in touch with either the Futerra team or ourselves, we'll give you our contact details at the end of the webinar. But please don't hesitate to pick Solitaire's brains at the end of today's webinar. So just before we get started, for those of you who may or may not know us, a very, very quick overview of who we are. A global organization, 400 members, retailers, manufacturers and their partners in over 70 countries. We're governed by a board of 54 CEOs now of retailers and manufacturers, for whom this topic of honesty and transparency is hugely important, and who were presented the outcome of this initiative on the Honest Product, and we will be driving this project across the different work streams of the Consumer Goods Forum in 2019. So what do? We work on environmental sustainability, social sustainability, product safety, health and wellness in the end-to-end value chain, and standards. And we have two main objectives. One is driving business efficiencies, and the second is positive change. So working together with Futerra on this project was an evidence for us to really drive through this topic of transparency and honesty for the members of the Consumer Goods Forum, our partners, and beyond. So with that, I'll hand you over to Solitaire to bring us through today's webinar on the Honest Product. So over to you, Solly.
I've lost it. Hello, can I check whether folks can hear me? I'm afraid my connection might be a little bit blinky.
Yeah, we can hear you now. All good.
Perfect, thank you. Well, hello everybody. It is wonderful to see the numbers of attendees totting up. Very exciting. So my name is Solitaire. I am the co-founder of the change agency Futerra. Many of you already work with Futerra, but for those who don't know us, we are a very good match for the Consumer Goods Forum. So Futerra works globally. We have 70 people around the world. And we call ourselves a change agency because we work for positive change. Half of what we do is the logic of change. So the strategies, the goals and targets, the plan for social, environmental sustainability, ethics and health. So setting those big targets and goals. The other half of what we do is the magic of change, which is the marketing, the messaging, the creative, the bringing sustainability alive for staff and crucially for consumers. And we have many of the same clients that the Consumer Goods Forum has as members. And through working with the Consumer Goods Forum and through working with our clients, the issue of transparency is just all-encompassing. It comes up in every conversation, in every conference, in every debate. We work on it with our clients like Danone, like L'Oreal, like Target, like Carrefour, all around the world. But it's also a sticky issue. It's a sticky issue which causes a lot of consideration inside companies. Are we doing too much? Are we doing too little? Should we be doing more? What are the risks associated with this? And what are the opportunities? And so in partnership with the Consumer Goods Forum, who particularly Sharon and the CGF team have been a fantastic partner for us, we decided to take a closer look. I am now trying to move my slides on. Great. So we built this guide, this Honest Product Guide, through 4 main inputs. We did an expert survey. Many of you on this call may have been one of the folks that we surveyed. We had over 70 companies responding, both CGF and Futerra members and clients, but also we invited folks from the Chartered Institute of Marketing so we could get professional marketers' views on this issue of transparency. We undertook 19 expert interviews with companies, but also with consumer advocates and even with regulators. We did desk research on the global surveys that exist, academic research, best practice, but we found that there was something lacking, particularly on the consumer surveys. And so as well as our survey of experts, we also undertook a survey of consumers in the UK, USA, France, Japan, China, Brazil, and India to really ask some questions that we didn't think had been asked before. So that's how we made the guide, but why did we build the guide? Why look into this issue of honesty, transparency, and sustainability? Now, everybody on this call knows that there is a crisis of trust. It's literally become a truism of every conference, of every article, of every event, that we know that there is an absolute just falling levels of trust in our politicians, falling level of trust in our brands and our companies, in some cases caused by bad practice by companies, in other cases just part of this overall erosion of deference and belief in institutions, because every institution, not just companies, but from our police forces to our politicians to our healthcare, there is an erosion in trust in all of the institutions. And we can see some of the challenges that that is causing in the world, not just for brands and companies trying to build trust and affinity with consumers, but also within society itself. And our expert survey showed that consumers want transparency. This sounds like there's a phone call in the background. I'm just going to keep going. So the survey of the experts showed that you experts, this is not the consumer survey now, this is the corporate and marketer survey, that consumers are interested in transparency, they're more interested than they were 5 years ago, and that they're going to be more interested in the future. I'd be really interested in the 5% of people who think that consumers are not going to be interested in transparency in the future. So transparency matters, consumers are interested in it, trust is an issue. But we're already doing a lot of transparency. From GRI to SASB to integrated reports to certifications to online websites, we're providing a great deal of transparency about what our companies are doing. For a number of you on this call, you've put a lot of effort into doing that transparency. And I've been involved in this sector for 20 years. I know that things such as corporate responsibility reporting, sustainability reporting, integrated reporting, the search for proof points that can be audited, this is not easy. There's a huge amount of work, in fact, indeed a full industry built up on corporate transparency. So why do we have this issue where whatever we do, how hard we work at our transparency, that trust is just seemingly year in, year out in the Edelman Trust Barometer eroding and eroding and eroding? Why isn't transparency working? So the very first insight that we pulled out from this huge review that we did over nearly a year around transparency, the very first insight that we pulled out is the fact that we may be focusing on transparency at the wrong level. I'm not talking about the issues, social, environmental, health. We need transparency across all of those. But are we looking at the wrong area to be transparent about. So all the examples that I just gave you of transparency about corporate transparency, businesses being transparent, B2C transparency. What we discovered is that that's not what the consumers want. They want P2C transparency, not business to consumer, product to consumer transparency. So both the corporate experts that we surveyed and the consumers agreed that they are most interested in hearing about the sustainability impacts of the products I buy. We gave the consumers the choice between the sustainability impacts of the businesses who make the products, brands, but it was products, that P2C transparency. And of course, when you think about it, of course, that's what they're interested in. What they're buying is the product. Your investors are buying into your company. They want transparency on what they're buying, which is the business. Your consumers are buying the product. In many cases, they may not even understand the holding company, the conglomerate, the multi-brand universe that we live within. They might not even know who owns that business. They care about what's in their hand. Is this product healthy? Is this product good for the environment? Who made this product? What I'm buying, what I'm spending money on, because my responsibility as a consumer is to understand the impacts of what I buy, not of the companies that made it. So this issue of product to consumer transparency came out incredibly clearly in what we're doing. Now, the corporates that we surveyed think they're doing a pretty good job of that. 86% of corporate experts agreed that consumers are very satisfied or quite satisfied with product transparency on sustainability. We use sustainability as shorthand for social, environmental, and health and safety issues. And by the way, we did give the corporate experts the option to say not satisfied or could do better. But 86% of you think that actually when it comes to product transparency, your consumers are quite happy with what you're providing. You're providing quite a lot. There's only a certain amount of space on product web pages, on point of purchase communications, on packaging. There's only a certain amount of space to give to transparency, and actually consumers are quite satisfied. Of course, it turns out that they're not. Well less than half of consumers felt that products provided the right amount of information on sustainability. By the way, I think it was around 4% thought that it provided too much, but the vast majority, well over half of consumers think that you're not providing them enough information on social, environmental, ethical issues. So this is our first big problem. We've got this mismatch. You think you're doing enough. Many of you on the call may not, but of those that we surveyed felt that they were doing enough, and the consumers don't feel like they're getting the information on the products that they buy. So this is a key insight. We went on to ask them, well, where do you want to hear about this information? And what we discovered is that they want this information about the products they buy on the product labels. They want it on the websites. By the way, company websites, they mean the brand website. They want to be able to go to the website and find more information. They want it in advertising. They want it in store. The least place they want it in is company reports. So vast majority of people want to be able to see the social, environmental, ethical, health transparency on products that they buy. And of course, if you're not providing that information, they are going elsewhere to find it. Now, this is the core issue. I have this all the time with my clients. Well, we can't be transparent about this. Well, we don't want to give the information on that. Well, this is too complicated to explain. It's like, that's great. You can choose what information you want to put into the public domain, but in the modern context, your consumers are going elsewhere to get that information. A lot of our personal care, cosmetic clients have got a lot of issues about ingredient transparency, about is there clarity around that? Do people understand that? But of course, there's now a plethora, a growing community of websites, third-party websites, activist websites, who will provide this information to the consumer if you won't. So you can choose to be transparent, but you can't choose whether that information is elsewhere. It's a really key issue as we go forward, which is the control of information is no longer in your control. It is, and if you're not being transparent about it, somebody else is telling the consumer the information about your product. And the high growth new brands, these breakthrough new brands, these brands that 20 years ago in a traditional retail context had very, very, very small consumer bases, and in the modern online retail context are able to reach a number of people. These brands get it. Now, a lot of very big companies have 1,000 cuts at the moment. They're dying by 1,000 cuts from these small, targeted brands, these authentic brands who seem to have transparency and sustainability at their heart and are really eroding market share for some of the big companies. And these new brands get it. And they do three things. They are honest in their corporate practice. So they do that sustainability reporting. They are clear about what they're doing as a company. You can argue whether they're doing well enough as a company, some of these small brands, but they are being transparent about it. They do have very clear brand purposes. Brand purpose is still a core part of this, that emotional connection, that values connection to consumer. I've spent most of my career working on that brand purpose aspect, but they're also providing that product proof, the information about the product in hand. And that's so crucial because it's where building trust crosses over with building affinity, where the left brain and the right brain, the head and the heart come together, is on that point of product proof. So taking a look at, for example, Innocent, love these guys, work with them a lot. They're very clear on corporate practice. You can go to their website and get a great deal of information about how they, as a business, are taking action on social, environmental, and health issues. They also have these wonderful brand purpose. Even the very name Innocent and the halo is associated with good work, positive change. But every single product gives a great deal of its territory, a great deal of its space to quite detailed levels of transparency. Every product you buy from Innocent is providing you with information about that product. If you take, for example, Lash, the cosmetics and personal care retailer, very strong, growing brand, very clear on its corporate practice. You can download its ethical buying policy. You can download its company tax policy. Wonderful, clear brand purpose, not animal tested, naked, organic, handmade. And yet every single product, even quite small products, have complete clarity, complete transparency on the ingredients, and you can actually, from a social sustainability aspect, you know who actually packed your product, that direct consumer to worker transparency. Take a look at someone like Tony's Chocolonely, a growing chocolate brand, come out of Sweden, now going global. Very strong corporate practice transparency, very clear brand purpose around slave-free chocolate, and yet they actually, even their pieces of chocolate, you'll notice there, you can see it, the chocolate is unequally broken up. It's not the nice, neat squares you usually get in chocolate, because they're being transparent about the inequity in the supply chain, even in how they produce their chocolate. And I encourage you to get a copy of Tony's Chocolonely, not least because it's lovely chocolate, but also take a look on their inside wrapper, where they're dedicating the entirety of their inside wrapper to being clear and transparent with their consumer on social and environmental issues. There's a lot of fantastic examples out there. And when we looked through these, we could have stopped at the insight that product proof is the real breakthrough area of sustainability transparency going forward. And in the guide, I go into this in so much more detail. I'm sorry, I'm really giving headlines here, much more about what types of proof, what type of questions you need to ask yourself. We have a whole database of examples in the guide. But we decided to dig a little bit deeper and go, what else are these small brands that actually are trusted and building trust doing? And what we discovered is it's not about transparency, it's about honesty. Now, those two words might sound like they're interchangeable, but transparent is an institutional word. Honest is an individual word. So transparency is about organizations, honesty is about people. And we took a look and we talked to some social scientists about what makes a person honest, what makes a person trustworthy, what are the attributes of an individual who we trust and believe in as a person. I'm sorry, I can't move this slide down. Would somebody mind moving it forward for me? Thank you. That was my big setup, and then that delay just built your anticipation for the answer, which is there are a whole set of attributes of an individual that make us trust and believe them, that builds our trust in that individual. If they say sorry, if they actually apologize and admit fault, such a difficult thing for a company to do. Your lawyers won't want you to do it. But when it comes to actually building trust with your consumer, getting out of a commoditized relationship with your consumer and into a human relationship with your consumer, being able to admit fault, ironically, actually will build trust rather than erode it. Saying, I don't agree with that, I'm not fair, it's not fair, being really clear about what your beliefs are. And this is really challenging, I can't do this on my own, we need help from others. Being clear about the boundaries that you have as a company, what you can achieve and what you can't achieve. So how can a product act like a person in its ways of transparency? We have a set of almost sort of a test that you can give yourself on this. Unfortunately, I seem to have lost control of the slide. So I'm just going to say slide and ask you guys to move these forward, okay? So could I have the next slide? Thanks. Does your product have good intentions with its transparency? Are you being transparent and honest in the forefront? Are you pushing it even front of pack? Or is it minimized and revealed reluctantly? Next. Can I have the next slide, please? Thank you. Are you making humble claims? Are you being honest about what you can achieve? So many of my clients want to put big 100%, we're 100% this or we're 0% this. They're very bombastic. We need to make a bold claim. When it comes to honesty and transparency, bold claims aren't your friend. You want to be able to talk about work in progress. You want to be able to talk about the challenges where you failed. It's a complete 180-degree mindset shift in terms of what builds trust, showing that everything which you're doing is a work in progress. Next slide, please. Makes much more of an impact than actually your 100% or 0%. Are you going on above and beyond? Are you communicating much more proactively to people? Are you being helpful? Are you communicating in a way that helps consumers actually make choices? Are you taking risks? And finally, are you standing for something? So in the next few slides, I'll just zip through these very quickly. For example, Everlane is transparent on its pricing. You can actually see from what you're paying for a denim jacket, how much of that is profit, how much of that goes to labor, how much of that goes to transportation costs. Now, Everlane is a small company, but actually even some large airlines are now giving that level of transparency. Next slide, Intermarché providing transparency on the sugar content, but not just providing transparency on the sugar content, providing it in a way that's helpful to the consumer to help her detox her sugar. Next slide, Monzo, which actually is transparent about how it makes its decisions. It's a financial services company, and it invited its consumers to vote on charging for cash withdrawals, and they voted to actually allow that charge to prevent charges elsewhere. They're completely transparent about how they make their decisions. This is the edge of transparency. So my final couple of slides, what is the 15-second version of all of this so we can answer some questions? Consumers care about product honesty, not company transparency. Now, of course, they care about company transparency a bit, but I'm saying that as strongly as I can because we are putting 80% of our effort into our company transparency and so little effort into our product honesty. Products should be honest like people, trying to embody the human value of honesty rather than the institutional value of transparency. And honesty means admitting fault, being clear about boundaries, communicating about work in progress rather than just communicating when you've got there at the end. And for brands to say relevant, obsess about honesty. Now, I had an argument about this whole piece of work with a corporate lawyer who was saying, well, this is risky. It's like, well, how risky? It's like, well, this could end up with court cases. It's like, really? If you're being truthful and honest, you're really going to be taken to court? And one of the questions you have to ask yourself is, too many large businesses consider losing 1% market share for some of its products, or even 5% market share, to be good news today. That actually this slow erosion, if you can slow the erosion down, that you're doing well. What is the greatest risk? Is it more risky to do the things that might gain you 10% market share than to keep doing what is losing you market share? I think we need to change our perception of risk around honesty, and to realize that honesty actually is a massive, valuable brand booster rather than a sort of risky legal issue to do. So that's the 15-second version. The final slide gives you details of where you can download this. And very much open for questions.
Thank you so much, Solly, and thank you everyone for joining. So we've questions that are coming in. So we'll go, as you can see here on the screen, you have Solitaire's contact details, and you can download the full version of the report if you haven't read it yet. So maybe I'll go through some of the questions that are coming in, and don't hesitate to contact us if you have anything that comes to mind, and of course we will we'll follow up with you afterwards. You should be able to see the chat box that's on your screen, or you can send me directly an email. So Solly, I'll go through some of the questions that we're.
Thanks. I'm afraid I can't see them at the moment, so you'll have to read them to me.
So I'll start with Cordula. Thank you very much. Solly, how should companies deal with limited space on product packages?
So this is a question that comes up again and again. So first of all, fight for more, which is that if you're in an issue of an erosion of trust, then giving space to honesty should be an absolute priority. And if it's not, then you need to question what's the value of what else is on the pack if you're actually losing consumer trust. So first of all, I have a bit of a hard line on this, which is if there's limited space, fight for more of it, because in the modern context, and particularly for the modern younger consumer, honesty is often much more important than kooky brand messages. So first of all, fight for more. Secondly, identify what is it that your consumer is most worried about or most concerned about around your product, and dedicate the space to answering that question rather than the things that you want. A lot of companies always go,
Solly, we've lost you. Well, I've lost your sound. Solly, if you can hear me, we've lost your sound.
Not your best proof points, then spend that space talking about what you want to do about it. So really importantly, to give the limited space, if it's something which you're working on, if it's something which you're not perfect on, even better. She will trust you much more if you do this packaging is 50% recycled and we're working on the rest. She will trust that kind of message much more than she trusts a we're perfect message.
Great.
I hope that answered the question.
So we will be sharing, of course, the presentation. So another one, Daniela, how is honesty connected to real life impacts, environmental or socially, and how do you prove your achievements?
So I missed the first half of that question. How is honesty?
How is honesty connected to real life impact, environmentally or socially, and how do you prove your achievements?
So again, a bit of the I think in the prove achievements aspect there is I would prove your effort more than attempting to prove your achievement. So one of the big challenges that we have is that the terminology and the focus areas that we have in social, environmental and health issues, often driven by regulators and by activists, is all quite esoteric, scientific. We're looking around, we're looking for improvements on quite complicated issues. Then when you get to the consumer, it's like, how do we talk about living wage issues in Bangladesh in a product? One of the things, again, is to always start with her. If you don't understand what worries your consumer most on social and environmental issues, you've got a challenge. And if I hear someone say we need to educate the consumer on sustainability issues once more, I'm literally, my head is going to explode. She already knows what she cares about. On no other issue would we be seeking to treat our consumer like a child and wanting to educate her. I know this wasn't the question, but just a side issue. So in terms of real life impacts, she's the one living the real life. What is she concerned about in her life? Is she concerned about the people who made the product? How can you connect her to the lives of the people who made the product? Is she concerned about her own environmental footprint, whether this product is recyclable, whether it's really recyclable? How can you put this in a terminology that's about her? That's another mindset shift, is to realize it's all about her. It's all about her worries, her concerns, her footprint, not yours. So particularly on environmental issues, so many companies talk about packaging, particularly packaging and recycling, about them and about how much they are doing to change packaging and recycling. And they forget that actually the consumer's worried about her own footprint and whether this product is going to make her a bad person because she can't recycle it. So again, talking about the fact that she can, and that this is good for her environment, much better way than talking about yourself.
Great, thank you. I'll try and squeeze in one or two more. Holly, thank you. Holly would like to know how important you believe comparability is for on-product communications.
So comparability is the gold standard, is being able to actually help your consumer make a decision between one product and another. However, I have great empathy with the fact that that is very difficult to do legally, let alone anything else. But we do need to be aware that the consumer is making comparisons. In fact, that's her job, is to make comparisons between products and to decide between them. That's consumer choice. And there's a number of independent websites and resources that are doing that for you. So comparability does really matter to her. And if you're able to make comparisons, one of the best ways to make comparisons is to compare yourself to yourself. So to compare this product to the product in the past. So a way to show comparisons is improvements in your performance from the product that she's buying today to the product itself. So if you can't make within industry comparisons, if you can't make competitor comparisons, then at least compare yourself to yourself.
Great, thank you. So another one from Mark. Do you have any thoughts on how to integrate the guidance on honesty in products into sustainable product design or new product development?
I think that's a fantastic final question. And my answer would be not yet, but that's an awesome idea. So that I think particularly the test that I showed further up, those 7 different ways that human beings talk about honesty, the ways in which human beings are trustworthy. I think that's a fantastic idea. Thank you for asking it. And yes, we should absolutely do that.
And so we haven't gotten to everyone's question, but rest assured, for everyone else, we've come up to the end of our time, who's emailed me or we've sent questions here, we will get back to you. We'll follow up with each and every one of you. If you do want to connect with us, please do get in contact. And as I said, this is not the end of the journey. We will continue working on honesty across the Consumer Goods Forum and with Futerra. So please do get in touch, and we will follow up with all of you who we didn't get to on the questions today. Thanks a million, everybody.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.